Hello, good evening, ladies. Good evening, ladies. It is our time together. Come on in. 7 o'clock Sunday night. You ladies know how we do it. It is Tea Talk with Dr. T. Come on in. Come on in. Let's have a conversation tonight. I told you we are going to talk about why you feel responsible for everybody else. Come on in. Make sure you are sharing with your sister because she needs to hear this. You got a friend that's doing too much, and tonight you are calling her on it. Wait, that might be you. Are you doing too much? You might be doing too much too. Why are you feeling responsible for everybody? So make sure you tag, make sure you share, make sure you are making sure that the sister that's doing too much is watching with you. So you can make sure she stops doing it after tonight. So I hope you got your tea. I hope you got your journal because we going in tonight, sis. After tonight, I'm hoping that you will stop doing too much. I'm hoping that you will be ready to empower another sister to help her to stop doing too much. So let me ask this question before we get started, because I want to know. Inquiring minds want to know, have y'all been doing y'all TikTok homework? If you've been doing your homework, put it in the chat for me. Let me see who's been doing their Tea Talk homework. I am hoping that you all are getting something out of these Tea Talks as we start the week out together. I want to know that you are paying attention to you, that you are putting yourself first on your list. So put it in the chat. Let me see. Comment how you have been doing your homework. If getting that homework done has been helping you, I want to know that because here's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping in my heart of hearts that as we continue to come together on Sunday nights at 7, I want to start a movement for women who look like us. For so long, we have ignored ourselves. We have put ourselves on the back burner. We have not allowed ourselves to feel our feelings, to be who we truly are. And I'm hoping with our Tea Talks on Sunday nights that you are feeling empowered enough to take yourself off the back burner of the stove that's not even on and put yourself first. That's not selfish. That's how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to put yourself first. And we learn that every time we get on an airplane and they tell us to put the mask on ourselves first before we help everybody else. But here's what happened. And I'm going into my tea talk for tonight, ladies. Here's what happens. We learn how to put ourselves on the back burner. We learn how to put everybody else first. We learn that what we want doesn't matter. We learn that what we need doesn't matter. It's not important. We learn how to ignore, silence our own voice to the things that make us happy. And that's why so many women that when you ask them the question, what do they want? What do they need? They can't answer it because just as they learned how to put other people first, they learned that their own wants, needs, expectations, and non negotiables are not important. So it is my hope, my dream, my desire that as we go throughout our time together on these Sunday nights at 7, even if you go back and do the replay, that you're getting something from it that empowers you to say, you know what? In midlife, it really is all about me. Because, sis, it really is all about you. So tonight, my first question to you is, why do you feel responsible for everybody else? Why do you feel that way? See, we learned early on, and I'm one of those kids because I shared with you all before that I'm the oldest of three girls. So I learned early on how to take care of my sisters. No, there was no sit down parent meeting with my mom and dad saying, you are responsible for your two younger sisters. I don't recall having that meeting with them, but I do recall that the signs, the subtle conversations, the subtle comments, the subtle instructions were there for me to learn and to absorb in me that when we were out and about, it was my job to make sure my sisters were safe. That's what I learned early on. But then that grew. It literally grew into now you're responsible not only for your sisters, but you become responsible for your community. And here's what I mean by your community. You're now responsible for Big Mama. You're now responsible for your own mama. You're responsible for your grandkids. You're responsible for your spouse. You're responsible for all of these other people. You're responsible for the people on your job. And see, that's where we morphed into something very different. We went from being responsible for these little people, if you were like me, to now we're carrying the burdens and the responsibilities of grown people. That was never intended. So, why do you feel responsible? Because you took helping out of the equation and you became God. Yeah, I did it too. I'm just as responsible as you are, sis. We took helping out of the equation and we started showing up like God. And this is what it sounds like. Well, if nobody else will do it, let me go and do it so it'll get done. Y'all know how we do. Y'all know how we do as Black women. Listen, we put that cape on our back and we just like, you know what? They won't even get it done. Let me go and get this done. And that taught us to always rely on us to get those things done. But here's the caveat to that. When you do that, you take the power away from other people to be responsible for their own outcomes. Yeah, you do that. You say things like, let me just get it done. You say things like, it'll just be easier if I handle it. You say things like, you know what? I don't want to let them down, so let me just go on and show up. Not too long ago, I was having a conversation with someone. We were were we at the grocery store? Might have been at the grocery store. And she had all of these party goods and everything. She had these party trays. She literally had about 10 party trays by herself. She was in the store by herself. And I said to her, I was like, oh, y'all look like y'all getting ready to have a good party. She says, well, yeah. She says, nobody else showed up to help me do all of this. So I guess I'm just in charge of putting everything in the car and making sure everything gets to where it's got to go. I said, wait, what? I said, you're doing this all by yourself? She said, yeah, they all started out saying they were going to help me, but nobody showed up. So I guess I just have to do it on my own. And in the back of my mind, I asked myself this question. What would happen if she just left all 10 of those trays right there and decided to show up to the party empty handed? What would happen? What do you think happened when she showed up by herself with all 10 trays? Let me give you a little hint, sis. Come a little closer. She co signed on their behavior for not helping her. She co signed on that. And as a result, the very thing that she was frustrated about standing in line at Publix, she perpetuated showing up at the party with all 10 trays by herself. And I'm sure the conversation probably continued on to say, oh, we didn't think you needed help because you always do it on your own. Does that sound familiar to y'all? If that sounds familiar to you, put in the chat, sounds familiar. I want to see that scrolling up in the chat. Sounds familiar. You're always the one to make things happen. And if that's you, sounds familiar. I want to see it in the chat. And so what she ended up doing was probably being frustrated with the very behavior that caused the friends not to show up in the first place. Because you do know, sis, that we teach people how to treat us. Oh, yeah, we do. We teach people how to treat us. The way we keep showing up, the very thing that frustrates us, the very thing that agitates us, the very thing that makes us exhausted is the very thing that we keep doing that allows this to keep going. And so I'm looking at this young lady trying to navigate 10 trays of food by herself, 10 trays, including the cake. Let me say that again, 10 trays, including the cake. And so now here she is driving, here she is loading everything up by herself, driving by herself, probably getting to the party by herself, probably unloading everything by herself. And you know what she's going to say when she gets to the party, right? Because we've all done it. You need some help with that? Nah, I got it. Because that's what we do. And so now she feels responsible for making sure that everybody's fed at the party. But was it really and truly her responsibility? Where did that come from? Where did it come from that we've got to start being responsible for everybody? It didn't come from your adulthood. It came from your childhood. And so now we show up as the strong one. Now we show up as the one with the answer. Now we show up as the peacekeeper. Now we show up as the person who has all things together, all times, all ways. Now we show up as the one you can call when you're in a pinch because they're going to always make it happen. This young lady was walking around with her cape and she didn't even know it at Publix. I felt so bad for her. But here's the thing, we grew into this. Here's what we do. We confuse responsibility with love. Ooh, I said that right there. We confuse responsibility with love. You think that because you're doing all of this, you're showing them what love looks like? No, you're teaching them that they don't have to do. And it's going to end up being your responsibility. And so you've equated your approval with actions. So if I do this action, I'll gain their approval. That's not how it works. I told you last week that you are enough all by yourself. You don't need to do things to gain their approval. But here's what you're doing. Your actions are done in hopes that they will continue to love you, in hopes that they will approve of you, in hopes that they will continue to do what they do for you. But here's the question, sis. What's the payoff for you in continuing to do those things? That's right. What's the payoff for you in continuing to do those things? I want you to think about this question for a second. When did you first learn taking care of everybody else was your job? When did you first learn it? And when did you get your first payoff? Or did you get your first payoff? Let's ask that question. Because walking around with everybody else's responsibility, that's heavy. Let me just say that again. Walking around with everybody else's responsibility is heavy. Y'all see what my shirt says? Not this year. My peace matters. This year, this midlife is all about you giving people back their responsibility. Because walking around with somebody else's responsibility, it's costing you, sis. Can I tell you what it's costing you? See, it's costing you your peace. How much is your peace worth? How much is your joy worth? Because walking around with somebody else's responsibility is costing you your joy. How much is your identity worth? Because walking around with somebody else's responsibility is costing you your identity. What about your relationships? How much is that costing? Walking around with somebody else's responsibility is costing you your relationships. It's costing you your energy. Look, sis, it's sounding like you're about to go bankrupt right now because all of this is costing you when you walk around with somebody else's responsibilities on your shoulder. And part of those responsibilities that you're walking around with, they're not your responsibilities, sis. They're God's. That's okay. Take a sip there. It's all right. Just woosah with me. Hear me out. They won't change their behavior because you keep showing up like God. When you're the answer to all of their prayers, when your actions don't allow their consequences to show up, ooh, 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 now you're showing up like God. When your actions don't allow their consequences to show up, now you're acting like God. Well, I don't want them to get in trouble, so I don't want the lights to go off. So I don't want them to lose their car. I don't want their car to be repossessed. See, now your actions are not allowing their consequences to show up. And that, my sis, is how you acting like God. You're acting like God. And that burden is going to end up being so heavy on you it's going to cost you more than you're willing to pay. See, you wondering why you got high blood pressure? Because you're paying the bills. You wondering why your bank account is too low? Because you're paying the bills. You wondering why you can't go to sleep at night? Because you're paying the bills. You wondering why you can't keep food down, why your head is hurting, why your A1C is sky high, why your ankles are swollen, why your back is hurting, why your shoulders are tight, why you got tightness in your chest, why you can't work out in peace, why you can't meditate. All of that because you're walking around with responsibility and burdens that are not even yours. So let me ask this question again. When did you learn to take on everybody else's responsibilities and let them become your burdens? Because that, sis, is a learned behavior. Let me say that again. That is a learned behavior. I bet if I were to ask you right now, when your daughter's rent is due, you can tell me the date that her rent is due. And so in the back of your mind, you're starting to strategize how you're gonna end up paying her rent and your mortgage at the same month. I know that because you've already strategized that in your head. But if I were to ask you, sis, what do you really need? You can't even tell me what that is. If that sounds familiar, I need you to type chat in the chat. Yes, yes, and yes, because that's what we do. We learn to take responsibility for everybody else. You say that in one voice, and then here's the next voice that you hear. I wish they would stop asking me. But your behavior is not changing. You're not showing up different. And so here's what I want you to think about. What's the difference between responsibility and ownership? Mhm. What's the difference between responsibility and ownership? Because responsibility and ownership are different. Here's what I want you to think about. You can love people without carrying them. You can love your children without carrying them. You can love your parents without carrying them. You can love your grandchildren without carrying them. You can love the people on your ministry without carrying them. You can love your friends without carrying them. Here's what you are responsible for. Y'all ready for this? You might want to put this in your journal. Here's the statement I want you to put in your journal. Type this in the chat for a sister who's going to go back and watch this replay. I am responsible for. Y'all ready? Put that in your journal and somebody type that in the chat for the replay. I am responsible for. Here are the things you are responsible for, sis. You are responsible for your choices. Yes, you are responsible for your decisions. I told you that choices and decisions are different. Choices means you got multiple options. Decision means there is only one answer, period. Decision means to cut off. And when you make a decision, you cut off all other options. So you are responsible for your choices. You are responsible for your decisions. You are responsible for your own attitude. Yes, sis, you are responsible for that. Can't nobody make you feel a certain type of way. You are responsible for your own attitude. You are responsible for your own boundaries. I tell ladies this all the time in counseling and in coaching. Once you establish what your boundaries are, it is your responsibility to protect those boundaries every single time. So, yes, sis, you are responsible for putting up your boundaries and you are responsible for protecting them. Here's another thing you're responsible for. You're responsible for your own obedience, not necessarily to God, but to yourself, sis. Once you decide, once you make a choice, once you establish those boundaries, it is your own obedience that steps into place to do what? Protect you. That's what it is. So it is your own responsibility to protect your own obedience. It is your own obedience that gets you the outcomes that you're looking for. Here's another thing you're responsible for. You are responsible for your own healing. And in midlife, it's all about creating and healing. First, we heal, then we create. When we create, we heal. And so As you go through this time in your midlife, as you look at this midlife and go, wait a minute, this is the best time of my life. Yes, sis, it is. And it begins with your healing. We can't go back and change our childhood. We can't go back and change our past relationships and mistakes. We can't go back. I don't know about you, but there's some things I just really don't want to go back to, but I can heal from them. And when I heal, I learn. And when I learn, I can create. And so now I can create this amazing thing called my midlife because I got the wisdom and the experience from my 20s, my 30s, and my 40s. And now in my 50s, I can create this amazing midlife that now is my life. It's not anybody else's. Here's another thing you're responsible for, your actions. And so when your actions don't equate to the outcome that you're looking for, you can't look at nobody else but how you're showing up. Are your actions showing up as the woman you want to be? I tell you all that we can't demonize the woman that we were before when we were making mistakes, right? When we were having those experiences that caused those gray hairs that we have now. We can't demonize her. We can't even demonize the woman we are now because we're learning, right? We're learning who we are in this stage of our lives. And so with the experience we have in our youthfulness and the wisdom we have right now, listen, my actions for the future me should be changing. I should start seeing a different me emerging and growing now because I'm learning that I'm responsible for me. I'm responsible for my choices, my attitude, my boundaries, my obedience, my healing, my actions. But here are the things that you're not responsible for, sis. Y'all got this? Type in the chat. I am not responsible for. And put this in your notebook as well. Put this in your journal. Here are some things that you are not responsible for. Number one, you are not responsible for others' adults' emotions. You're not responsible for your adult children's emotions. You're not responsible for your coworkers' emotions. You're not responsible for your ministry members' emotions. You're not responsible for, listen, you're not responsible for your boo, your bae, your spouse's emotions. You're not responsible for them. That's the first thing. You're not responsible for them. If you need to practice that in the mirror, I want you to do that this week. I am not responsible for their emotions. Here's the second thing you're not responsible for. You're not responsible for their healing. It is not your job. It is not your responsibility to drag them along to get them healing. I told you some of y'all keep showing up like God and they keep letting you be gods in their life because you keep showing up that way. It is not your job for them to get their healing. It's their job. Give it back to them. Here's the third thing you're not responsible for. You're not responsible for their reactions. So when your actions change, you're not responsible for their reactions to your lack of action now. Oh, I just said that right there. When your actions change, you're not responsible for their reactions to your lack of action because now you're changing the way you show up. You're not responsible for the way they react to the way that you're showing up now. Mm, mm, mm. That was good right there for me. The next thing you're not responsible for is their life choices. If you don't agree with their life choices, let them have their life choices. Why? Because they need to be responsible for the consequences that come after them. Stop choosing for them. Stop disempowering them. Stop allowing them to use you because you've equated your usefulness for love. Listen, you're beautiful, amazing, and loving, even if you're not useful to them anymore. And here's the truth of the matter. When you stop showing up that way, the truth may really come out that they are just truly using you for what you do for them. The Bible says you will know the truth and the truth will make you free, right? And sometimes we interchange that word make and set you free. Here's the problem with that. The problem with that is when you don't accept the truth, because you can know the truth, but if you don't accept the truth and move in the truth is not going to make you free or set you free. You're still lying to yourself. So when you are now allowing their life choices to have consequences and you're no longer showing up as God, or you're now changing your actions and their reactions are not the positive reactions because they mad at you because you're not showing up that way anymore, now the truth shows up. And now you can make different choices for you based on the way the truth shows up. If you truly want to make choices, different choices in your life. Here's another thing that you're not responsible for. You're not responsible for, and clutch your pearls right here and take a breath with me. You ready, sis? You are not responsible for their happiness. Let me say that again. You are not responsible for their happiness. You're not. And the sooner you realize that, the lighter your load is going to be. Here's one thing I want you to remember. Compassion doesn't require control. You can be compassionate and not control the outcome. You can have empathy, but not walk in the control. See, some of you want to control the outcome because you want to now say that you did it all. It's okay, take a breath. I know you're used to making it all happen. But when you stop carrying other people's responsibility and you realize now that it's not your responsibility to make them happy, when you realize now it's not your responsibility to create their outcomes, now your load gets to be lighter. And so now you can focus on the things that you're actually responsible for. See, sometimes loving someone means allowing them to carry their own load, consequences, and all. So, yeah, they spend all their money on Friday night and now they're calling you on Monday morning for money to pay the bills. Listen, the lights might just have to get cut off. And that's okay. Because if it doesn't happen, then they won't learn the consequence. Here's the journal. Y'all ready? Whip out your journals because now it's time for you to get ready for your homework this week. There are consequences, not only for them, but there are consequences for you when you're so busy trying to carry everybody's burden. But here's what I want you to think about this week when it comes to your homework. Here's the first question I want you to write in your journal. And somebody be so sweet as to type this in your chat for the replay. Here we go. Here's the first thing that I want you to think about this week. Who am I carrying that God never asked me to carry? Who am I carrying that God never asked me to carry? God didn't ask you to carry your children. God didn't ask you to carry your spouse. God didn't ask you to carry your sister, your brother, your cousin. God didn't ask you to do that. Who are you carrying that God did not ask you to carry? Here's the second question I want you to put in your journal that I want you to meditate on this week. Here we go. Y'all ready? What happens inside me when someone is disappointed with me? Here's the truth. Some of you keep carrying those burdens, keep carrying those heavy weights on your shoulders. Some of you keep doing what you've always done because deep down inside, you're looking for approval and love from them. That's going to require you to unpack some of your own baggage. I told you last week that you cannot elevate unless you drop some weight. And dropping some of the weight is going to require you to sit down with yourself this week and answer that question. What happens inside of me when someone is disappointed with me? How does that make you feel? And why is that burden so heavy for you when you disappoint someone? Is it that they are disappointed because you always ... right? And remember, I told you, are you equating your actions with approval? So now we've got to look at why that disappointment is so heavy on you. We're going to look at that this week. Here's another question that I want you to put in your journal for this week. What would my life look like if I trusted other people to carry their own responsibilities? What would your life look like if you trusted them other folks? I'm going to say it like my grandma used to say it. If you trusted them other folks to do what they're supposed to do, which is to carry their own responsibilities, what would your life look like? Would you have more peace? Would you have more joy? Would you have more time and energy to do the things that you want to do? Would you have better health because you're not ripping and running and doing everything for everybody else? So now your blood pressure goes down. Now your A1C goes down. Now the back pain goes away. What would your life look like if everybody in your life, you gave them back their own responsibilities, right? That's the first set of questions I want you to ask yourself this week. See, I got extended homework this week for you. Here's the next set of questions I want you to put in your journal. And these are all about you. Yeah, these are heavy hitters. Y'all ready? This is the next set of questions. Question number one. Why am I doing this? When somebody asks you to do something, ask yourself the question, why am I doing this? When you take a moment and you pause and you ask yourself, why am I doing this? I'm hoping that in taking that pause and asking yourself that question, now you begin to have a conversation with yourself instead of being on automatic pilot and automatically saying yes. Why are you doing that? Why are you going to Publix and picking up 10 trays and a cake by yourself? Why are you doing that? Right? So that's the question I want you to ask this week. When somebody asks you to do something, hey mom, can you babysit the kids while hey mom, hey sis, can you, why am I doing this? Take a moment and ask yourself that question. Here's the second thing I want you to think about this week. Is it actually my responsibility? Is it my responsibility to go to Publix and pick up 10 trays and a cake? Is it my responsibility to go take you to water gas and light, to the phone place, is it my responsibility to go take you run your errands? Is it my responsibility to do it? Is it my responsibility to burn up all my gas to do this? Right? That's what I want you to ask yourself this week. This week, I want you to ask yourself, here's a heavy hitter question. Take a sip of tea, take a deep breath. Y'all ready? Here's the next one. Am I helping? Am I hurting? Am I rescuing? Ooh. Am I helping? Am I hurting? Am I rescuing? If you're always 911, you're going to keep being 911. You want to stop being 911? Stop showing up as 911. Am I helping? Am I hurting? Am I rescuing? Here's the next one. Am I giving from love or guilt? Am I showing up out of love or am I showing up out of guilt? Here's the last question. What would happen if I allowed them to figure it out all by themselves? What would happen if I allowed them to figure it out all by themselves? They might just learn something. You think? All right, sis. Listen, we've had our time this week. I hope you have gotten a lot out of this session about why you feel responsible for everybody else. I hope you get through this homework this week. I hope you're taking your homework seriously. I hope you're sharing your homework with another sister. I hope that you all are having conversations about how you have been ignoring your own needs and how in midlife things are going to change. I hope for you that this week, that before you automatically jump up and say yes, that you take a step back and you ask yourself, why am I really doing this? Now, more importantly, do I even want to do this? That's the magic question. Do I even want to do it? I'm hoping this week that when you look in the mirror, you're starting to see a different version of you emerging. That's my hope for you this week. My prayer is that you become the empowered woman that you dream about, that you hear the voice in your head, but don't think she's possible. Oh, she's possible. She's waiting on you to make some different choices and some different decisions. So I'm hoping this week you'll start listening more to her. I'm hoping this week that you'll start turning the phone off and giving yourself time to sit with you. I'm hoping this week that instead of saying yes to other people, you're going to say yes to yourself one more time. I'm hoping this week that instead of saying no to yourself, right, that you're going to start sitting with yourself, learning yourself, and loving yourself even the more. That is my hope and prayer for you this week, sis. And of course, like I always say, as I wrap up our tea talks together, I hope this week that you do what? Put yourself first on your list. All right, sis. Until next week, guess what? Put yourself first, like I just said. Put yourself first on your list. All right. Until next week, y'all have an amazing week. Do what you do and do it for you. I will see you next week, Sunday night, 7 o'clock. Share this with a sister. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I love reading your comments. Thank you. I will certainly see a different person. Thank you so much for that, Brenda. Misha with the hearts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all taking the time out of coming with me. Vernetta, thank you all for showing up as you all do. Make sure you share this. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hey, and guess what? If you would like for me to talk about something specifically, in the future YouTube chats, in the future Facebook chats together, in the future Tea Talks, drop me a DM. Let me know what you want to hear about. I want to discuss what you're interested in hearing about. That's what I want to do. All right, y'all. Until next week, have a good one.